There are various forms how one can learn a skill like Kung Fu. Obviously, the most common form is to find yourself a teacher. But what do you do if somehow, by any reason, you can't do that? Instead of learning just unstructured techniques or various forms from the internet, let's take another look at this perspective. So the biggest problem of learning a skill like Kung Fu on your own is that you don't have a structured process of learning things, or someone who tells you what you have to do and what you're doing wrong. So you need a form of guidance and feedback. So instead of relying on someone else, let's see if we can create a tiny system that enables us to learn Kung Fu on our own. Kung Fu translates into great skill, cultivated through hard work over a long time. And I know there are various different kind of styles, modern and traditional interpretations, hard and soft ways to learn it, complex embedded concepts and systems like 5 elements, 5 animal styles, yin and yang, bagua. But for the sake of simplicity, let's take a really down-to-earth perspective on it. We want to learn the core of what makes a skill like Kung Fu work. And that's not a set of techniques, forms, positions, stances, or any traditional interpretation of a style. No, it's none of that. It's how we move with our body and coordinate ourselves through movement.
Like you can divide strength training into pushing and pulling exercises, you can apply the same principle to Kung Fu. There are pushing movements like punch, hook, swing, block or kick, and there's a pulling element where you evade, dodge or deflect an attack. So this is basically it.
That progress may be a little too fast.
Let's assume we're an engineer who wants to create a Kung Fu robot. What functionalities do the different body parts need to have? As the legs' functionality is to carry us around, they need to be strong and mobile. The hips enforce the legs' function. The spine helps us orient ourselves in the room and needs to be mobile. With our shoulders, arms and hands we manipulate and therefore need to be mobile, accurate and have a certain amount of strength.
The categorization in body function may seem very obvious to some of you. So why is it important to learn a skill like Kung Fu or any other movement skill? Unfortunately, many people lose themselves in traditional techniques and lose the big picture of doing things, and also attribute the wrong body functions to the wrong movements. Especially with Kung Fu, you have many fancy techniques, which from a body dynamics perspective doesn't make any sense.
Take the infinite number of arm techniques that Kung Fu seems to have. We can lose ourselves in these techniques and try to deflect or block everything with our arms instead of using our legs, hips and spine to evade an attack. The same goes for pushing movements. Some Kung Fu practitioners try to generate all the force with the arms instead of the legs and hips. There's something called a kinetic chain, where you want to generate force through a chain of muscle and joints, starting with the strongest.
So we start generating force with our legs and force it with our hips, orient ourselves in the room through the spine and transfer the force through our shoulders and arms to a place where we want to have an effect. So a simple system with many options is the approach that we want to take.
we start by stepping and pushing. With a step, we move our body and therefore generate force. To be specific, kinetic energy. In terms of coordination, we can take two distinct options to lead the power of the step into the pushing arm, an ipsilateral or a contralateral turn. Ipsilateral means that we use the same arm as the stepping leg, whereas contralateral means the opposite arm. If we don't turn our torso, we can't fully utilize the power of the hips, spine and scapula to transfer the power from the lower body into the arms. The rotation is done from the body's center to move the energy from the legs into your arm. A common mistake is to move your arms first and drag your feet behind, or to move your arms after the steps separately. So the simplest form of our Kung Fu system contains of 4 elements: ipsi step left, ipsi step right, contra step left, contra step right. This already has many hours of substance to improve your movement quality and the understanding of basic coordination. We can multiply our possible options by 2 if we introduce stepping backward into our little Kung Fu system. And there are even more options to expand our possibilities within the same movement frame if we add side steps. For the versions where we step outside, we can choose to move our body with the step or just move the leg and turn the torso while remaining centered. So what are the movement qualities you want to look for here? First, you want to learn to work with the whole body, minimizing tension in the shoulder and arms and working on clean steps and rotation through the torso. Second, you can improve speed and/or power from the legs and hips. In terms of speed, a helpful tool is using a metronome. This way, you can accurately measure your rhythm. You quickly find out at what speed you start to make mistakes or where the quality of your movement drops.
So my friends, I think we already have a quite nice little system for ourselves. But I think it's still missing 2 components. The first one is a defense. And for that we're gonna implement a pulling movement to counterbalance the pushing arm.
Tuck the elbow in and keep the arm relaxed. This is a very simple form of defense with a light deflecting effect. But it integrates nicely with the whole movement, which makes it very versatile.
And the last component of our little system is transition movements to make it an open system.
Right now, everything revolves around one point. To change that, we can invite 1-2 combos into our practice. Simply put, a combo uses one step to initiate 2 movements. First, you step and punch as you normally would, but then add another hip and torso turn for the second punch. This way you can do consecutive steps without coming back to a standing position to switch between contra and ipsilateral movements.
Now you have a simple Kung Fu system that you can practice, that teaches you a vital coordination concept and is grounded in logical body dynamics, and also is simple enough to give you countless options to move. Lastly, I want to mention that this video is not meant as a fighting or self-defense guide, as I believe the best way to learn to fight is by inviting and accepting the chaos of a fight and do actual sparring. The concept and ideas of these videos follow a broader movement perspective. It should give you a better understanding of body dynamics, coordination, and a systematic approach of what I believe Kung Fu ought to be. A way of movement, cultivation and expression that is grounded in physics, with the goal of developing a strong, healthy body and mind. I want to leave you with the words of John Gall, a physician and author. A complex system that works is invariably found to have evolved from a simple system that worked. The inverse proposition also appears to be true. A complex system designed from scratch can never work and cannot be made to work. You need to start over, beginning with a working, simple system.